Welcome, everybody. Very glad you joined us today for this talk. We have a big thank you to the Ontario Fruit and Vegetable Convention and the educational series for this year. Wish we could see you all in face to face, but this is our next best thing, and we appreciate you listening to us and hopefully learning something today. So, we're going to talk today about why do you need risk management in agriculture? Okay, so we've got a pretty impressive team working together today. Okay, we've got Jan Schooley with us today. Jan is a farm owner of Schooley Orchards and Apple Hill Lavender. Jan was formerly the program lead for the on-farm food safety team for horticulture with OMAFRA. She's got a background in botany and in horticulture. Our second speaker today is Matthew Lepard. Matt is the risk management trainer and risk management program lead for Farm Management Canada. He's got a background in business management and accounting. And we've got myself. I am Connie Kaler. I am a certified Good Agriculture and Collection Practice International Trainer and Auditor for the Canadian Herb Spice and Natural Health Products Coalition. I've presented on risk management in 6 countries, and I'm the Executive Director of the National Specialty Ag Association, HSSA. So today, we're going to cover, which we've done part already, the introduction of who we are, the state of risk management in agriculture. I'm going to describe to you what exactly does risk management mean and why do you need it. We're going to go through some of the tools that are available and the resources, and we're also going to talk about one grower's experience, and then we're going to go to you guys and let you ask us some questions about what we've just presented. So why do you need risk management in agriculture? Risk management and uncertainty is a very big part of agriculture. If you talk to any producer, they're going to say risk is front and center on their mind, whether it's about weather or the global marketplace or the limited experienced labor force or changing consumer trends, or God help us, political agendas. Uncertainty is what leads to poor planning and decision making. It affects your farms, your farm families, and your market. Planning for risk management for risk reduces the impact. Now we're going to take a look at this chart. If you will see off to the vertical part on the side is about your readiness, and the bottom is the risk. So the readiness, as you will see, where we sit as food producers means that we're not very ready. We are not prepared for risk and not addressing it like many of the other sectors are. And you also will see from this slide that we are one of the highest risk categories for operating as a business.
Thanks, Connie. So I'm going to jump in here and talk a little bit about business management in agriculture. Farm Management Canada has been working in this for the last almost 30 years now. And over time, we've gathered some information about the state of risk management in agriculture and of business management in agriculture, which is really what we're trying to promote as much as possible. So some of the statistics we see at the present time are that there aren't that many people in agriculture who have a fully written risk management strategy, and we're looking at less than 32% of Canadian farmers, which is obviously something we'd like to see increase if possible. We also know that 75% of Canadian farms are going to be changing hands over the next 10 years, but only 8% of them have a completed written succession plan. So that to us already indicates that there's a lot of risk right there in what's going to happen on farms over the next few years. If people are not ready to transition, they haven't made their plan to transition, and there's such a large number of them that will be transitioning over the next 10 years, it does create an awful lot of risk for the sector. And of course, this is not the only type of risk that farms are facing. As we know, there's lots of them, and we're going to see a bit more about them later in the presentation. But this already is sort of a red flag for us. So we'd like to see definitely some increase on that side. And I know that there's a lot of producers who feel like they would greatly benefit from being a little bit more prepared for the next generation to come in. The succession effect, as we call it as well, is having another impact on farms, which is that given the fact that people are on the verge of retirement, there's less of a tendency to start investing in other projects for the farm. That's something that most likely the next generation will be taking up. But it is causing farms to stagnate a little bit at this point as well. So the idea here is to say that it's important to incorporate risk management plans as a farm in the agricultural community, as they do in many other types of businesses that we've seen in other sectors. Unfortunately, it's not as common a practice as we would like in the agricultural community. So the question is, why isn't it happening? Why aren't producers planning either for transition or for their risk or just their general business planning? Why are there so few that are actually getting it done and written down on paper? And a lot of people feel like it's not really necessary. So over the course of the presentation today, we're going to try to demonstrate the value of risk management in particular and risk management planning, so that there might be a shift in that perception as well. The other part of the other factor that's stopping people from planning in agriculture as well is the fact that a lot of people are at an age where they're close to retiring. So at that point, they may not necessarily feel like starting to create plans, whether it's strategic plans or risk management plans, is really something that's top of mind or the most important they could be doing with their time. And speaking of time, that's the next one, is a lot of people don't feel like they have a lot of time to do planning activities, and that's an issue as well. It's all about what type of priorities are you putting on the activities that you're doing, and is planning considered something that is important to you on your farm? So it's certainly a consideration, and a lot of farms also think that businesses, their business is a family business, a smaller business, so it doesn't require that type of activity where we're sitting down to do strategic plans or risk management plans or that sort of thing. And then the rest are smaller percentages. They either never thought about it, or they have a plan, but it's in their head. It's not really a formal plan, and they think they can succeed without one. And or some people are not quite sure what to do. So throughout this presentation, we're going to try to highlight the importance of risk management planning and risk management activities. And we'll also show that there are some tools and resources available to be able to do that. An important fact that I just want to highlight quickly is that when we look at business management or risk management, and we also look at farms that are successful, we could see a direct correlation between the planning activities, the risk management activities, the business activities of the farm, and how much of that's being done versus the success of the farm. And that's on a financial level, and as well as many other levels as well, whether it be at production level or a time management level or that sort of thing. So really there is a direct relationship between the success of the farm and how good that farm is at business management and risk management. How do we know this? Well, we did a study at Farm Management Canada a few years back, and that study was repeated just recently, last year. And the research showed that there's a measurable link between management practices and financial success. So we were able to show a direct correlation between the two. And one of the things that became highlighted through that study was that there really are 7 top business management practices that drive farm performance and that put the top 25% at the level that they are because they have these practices in place. So the 7 management practices that are driving farm financial success that we've seen through this study, a quite extensive study, was that people who are doing ongoing skills development, so who keep learning, keep doing training, keep going to get more information, have a much better chance of having farm financial success. The same goes for using accurate financial data. The more you know about your financials, the better it is for your farm success. The same thing goes for farm advisors. Those who use farm advisors have a tendency to be more successful as well. And investing in those farm advisors could certainly be useful. Having a written business plan, again, is very, very important, and it is another driver. Monitoring your cost of production as well. These types of things are best management practices that all contribute to farm financial success. And here we are at the risk management one, which is to say that having a plan to manage and mitigate your risks is one of the top 7 management practices that drives farm financial success. And then finally, having or using a budget and a financial plan to monitor your financial position and your options. So these are all drivers for your farm financial success, and it's important to see that risk management is one of those important factors. There's financial management, and there's keeping up with the new information and new trends, but having that risk management plan is very important in order to ensure the success of your farm. And this is a type of difference we can see between those that are using these practices and actually building those plans, and those that are not. So if you look at the vulnerable versus the less vulnerable, then you can see that the group at the bottom 25% versus the top 25%. There's a large difference between their asset turnover, their gross margin ratios, and the return on assets. It goes from a rating of being vulnerable to strong or moderate, depending on the situation. And then the change in the financial success of the farm could be quite high. So that return on assets, for example, between the bottom 25% of the industry and the top 25 of the industry, we've seen an increase of 525%. That's a huge difference on your bottom line, and it's mainly because of those business management activities. So important to have those plans in place to do your business management, and in particular to work on your risk management, which is a huge tool for this. So planning for risk and uncertainty. When we talk about uncertainty, and this relates directly to risk management, we're talking about things that will cause you stress and will also have an impact on your decision making. So it's important to consider that as a factor when you're thinking about whether or not you should be building your risk management plan. The more uncertainty there is, the more you're going to be stressed about what's coming up in the future for you. And there's a lot of things out of our control in the agricultural industry. So to be able to build a plan around that and manage your risk will certainly help to reduce that uncertainty, and at the same time reduce the stress and possible poor decisions that you might make because of the situation that you're in. it's important to know what's in your control and outside of your control when you're building this risk management plan. And more importantly, it's important to take a comprehensive approach to managing your risks. So that is to say, looking at not just the risks that you would consider for insurance purposes, or that you can manage through government programs, or risks maybe that are related to security or that sort of thing, but really looking at the big picture and saying, what are all the risks that I'm dealing with, and how do I get those in an order that I could deal with them in a priority level way. So that is to say, in the right order according to the importance they have for my farm. And as you can see here, there's quite a few different types of risks that we can deal with. There's risks that are associated to people, places, products, your finances, markets, your production, policy, strategy, all of this, looking at all the types of risks and what the connections are between them, and being able to navigate through that and find the ones that are most important to you to be able to deal with them right away and build them into your plan. And we're going to look at some of those a little bit later, but just the idea of going beyond what I guess traditional risk management has been, which is mostly dealing with your insurance programs. And of course, you want to put in the measures that help to mitigate those negative risks, or those negative impacts. So something that came out of the OECD a while ago to corroborate that, to basically confirm what we've been trying to say, is that the OECD about 10 years ago now came out with a report to indicate what they thought countries should be doing about risk management. And the main message was that we needed to take a more holistic approach to risk management to avoid focusing on a single source of risk. So that's as an industry. But the bottom line is that risk management is more than using insurance and government programs. It's about dealing with all the types of risks that you're facing and finding ways to reduce those risks on your farm through best management practices, as well as using the tools that are available to you outside of that.
Thank you, Matt. Now, Matt's really done a good job here of outlining the scope and what you need to be looking at and why. But now we've got this big pile of risk, and we're probably fairly freaked out. But there is a way of managing it, and that's our goal, is to manage the farm risk, to be proactive about it, and be planning as to how to do it. You want to both look at what's in your control and what's outside of your control. If something's outside of your control, there still needs to be a plan to do, what do I do about it if it happens? And what's in control, let's hope we can minimize that risk and we can mitigate it and get it into a smaller category so it actually doesn't impact you as bad. So we're looking at farm management risk by minimizing the threats, making sure that we take calculated risks. Risk and farming is hand in hand. If we don't have risk, we don't have farming. So we need to understand which ones we're going to take and which ones we can take. How much can we manage? And that's really individual. And make sure we seize those opportunities. But first of all, we need to prioritize. We need to understand which risks have the biggest impact and are going to happen the most often. We're going to have to manage those risks. We can do it in a couple ways. We can build a plan, or we can use insurance or government programs, or ideally a hybrid of both. Because what we're doing is mitigating the negative impact and coping with negative outcomes when they're out of our control. So what we're talking about here is prevention. So we want to do, and that, I love that old saying, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Couldn't fit this better. So don't do this alone. You are not alone. There are many good programs out there. We're going to talk about a couple of them today, but don't do it alone. There is help out there, and there is ways to help make this route easier. I know all of you love to do mountains of paperwork and figure everything out on your own. But for the rest of you, which is 99.9% of you, let's do some time management here and use the support that's out there. There are programs that will help you develop your own procedures, do that risk management, and delineate, help you with some sources on what to do if this happens, and get you some training.
Thanks, Connie. So one of the programs that's available to you if you want to pursue this is a program that was developed by Farm Management Canada called Routes to Success. So the program is meant to be a comprehensive risk management training program. And we're currently doing a series of workshops all across Canada, well, for anybody in Canada, really, because they're all being done virtually at the moment. We had planned to do it in person throughout the country, but at the moment, everything's offered online. So it's accessible to pretty much anybody with an internet connection. And this virtual training is meant to help you to increase the ability to assess and address risks. So what we're trying to do through these training sessions, which are basically 2 3-hour sessions, is to gain knowledge about some of the tools and resources that are available to you to make better business decisions, to share some best practices and other lessons learned with other producers, because they're very interactive sessions where we're talking about our own personal situations and looking at how we've been dealing with certain risks, and to begin to create a comprehensive risk management plan that's tailored for each individual farm. So we do go through the full process of identifying the risks that you're facing, and looking at all the risks that exist that we know of in agriculture, and making a bit of a cleanup in there, and figuring out which ones are more important. So doing an assessment of your farm, and then prioritizing those risks, and finally building an action plan to deal with those risks. So that's what you get to do through this training program. The training program will continue on for the next few years. It's a training program that was developed with the help of Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada through the Agri-Risk initiatives. And so it's available for free to producers across Canada until December 2022. So we still have some time, and we'll be doing lots of these across the country. So stay tuned for some of those announcements. The program uses a platform actually that was also developed through the Agri-Risk initiatives, which is called AgriShield. And AgriShield is an online platform where you can go in and either access some information and resources that will help you to manage risks on your farm, or you could actually go in and do a full assessment of your farm, going from a very macro level where you're looking at all the types of risks and which ones are more important to your farm, and delving in to the ones that are higher level risks for your farm, and looking in more detail at those, and then developing your action plan. So all of the components of the training that we've been talking about through the Routes to Success training program are integrated into this platform, and we use this platform for the training. So this platform you could use without the training, or you could actually follow the course and then have all the information you need on how to use this. But both use the same approach to risk management, which is a comprehensive approach. This is kind of what it looks like, and very quickly I'm going to show you the platform and a bit what we're talking about when we're talking about risk identification. So as you can see here, when we're talking about risks, we're talking about a lot more than things that can be covered with insurance. So here I've got 6 risk families that we've identified through the help of focus groups with producers and consultation with other professionals in the industry to ensure that we had covered all the risks. And under each one of the risk families, we have these risk families as well. So, sorry, these risk categories. So under people, we have occupational health and safety and all the risks that go along with that, personal well-being and the risks to your personal well-being, hired labor, family relations, and contractors and advisors. And each one of them has a series of risk situations associated to them. For instance, when we're talking about personal well-being, well, we have to consider things like social isolation, physical or mental fatigue, some possible disabilities. These things have risks, and all of them need to be considered. And each one of the risk families has multiple categories underneath it. So if we're looking at the finance family, we have categories like money management and investments. For markets, we have sourcing, selling, and trade. For management, we have business strategy and development, technology and innovation, transition planning, and operations. So all of these, once again, have have different risk situations associated to them that need to be considered and assessed in order to then decide which ones are more important for your farm. Same goes for your business environment. There are things that are outside of your control and that are outside of your farm that you need to consider as well. Things like public trust and consumer advocacy and politics, policies, and regulations that you may not be directly involved with, but you still will have consequences that cause risk for your farm. So it's important to consider those in your risk management plan. And the same thing, of course, for production, which we're more familiar with, things like in the environment and climate, animal health and welfare, nutrient management, pest management, and soil, water, and biodiversity management. So in a nutshell, what I'm trying to say here is that when we're talking about a comprehensive risk management plan, we're talking about a whole bunch of different risks and risk categories that need to be considered as part of the plan and prioritized so that you know exactly which ones you should be dealing with right away versus which ones can be dealt with a bit later on. And once you've done that, you're able to build your action plan. So that's what AgriShield does. That's what the Roots to Success training program does as well. And as I said, the Roots to Success training program is available for free for the next few years. Now, the AgriShield platform that we use also considers farm sustainability, and it was actually measured against an internationally recognized standard called the Farm Sustainability Assessment. And that assessment is used across the world to assess whether a farm is sustainable at all levels. So we're talking about how you deal with your employees, what your impact is on the environment, if you're using sustainable practices as far as not causing waste. All of these things are considered within the assessment, and we benchmarked the AgriShield platform to it and found out that we were already meeting almost all the sustainability practices that are put forward by this farm sustainability assessment. So given that benchmark, we now have the option as you're going through the platform to also assess your sustainability. You still need to do an audit at the end of it, but the idea is that as you're checking on your risks and as you're assessing your risks, you'll be identifying which practices you already have in place on your farm. And the more of these practices that you have, the more sustainable you are, because the two are very, very linked together. So as you're doing your assessment, you're also determining not only what the more important risks are for your farm, but also how sustainable your farm is according to this internationally recognized standard. So risk management essentially helps you to meet sustainability requirements as well, which are becoming more and more important in the industry as far as who you're dealing with to sell your product, the consumers, and that sort of thing. So an important consideration as well in your risk management. And finally, I'm going to talk very quickly about another program that Farm Management Canada has that was just put up recently, which is a website called agriresponse.ca. And this is a website that you can go to whenever you like to ask questions about risk management, contingency planning, and that sort of thing. And we have a series of experts that are available to answer those questions if there's enough interest for it. So we encourage people to go there, ask questions, or look at the questions that were already asked, and see if maybe some of the answers you're looking for are already there. It also has a list of resources available through the website, and this is a completely free website, so you feel free to go and take a look at that. Just an extra little help to help you with your risk management.
Okay, thank you very much, Matt. So we're on to our second tool, or technically our third one, that is available to you. We've got good agriculture and collection practices. Now, this is a program that is internationally recognized. The World Health Organization has a good agriculture and collection program. So does the EU. So does the United States under the American Herbal Product Association, all of which we benchmarked or else done mutual recognition with. It is, if you're using this program and have incorporated it into your business, you're going to find that if you are trading internationally or even locally, works equally in both, it's very recognized. We have, it's not only for producers, it's also for processors, and it's not only for food. It's for anything that you are dealing with in your operation. It is technically about your skills. This program is there to teach you skills on how to manage risk. And it gives you tools to help you develop your own risk management program, but ensuring that that skill set is in right throughout your operation. What we want at the end of this program, when you're done the training, is for you to ensure that you have a culture of risk management throughout your whole operation. And that way you're working as a team. It is, the training has a certificate at the end, and it's a pass or fail training that you can attest that you've taken and passed if you have. And if you want, you can get into audit frequency where you can have an audit for your program. Okay. Now, we're not all about food safety. It has the On-Farm Food Safety CFIA recognition program as its basis, and we every 18 months go through CFIA to ensure that we validate it and our HACCP model is up to date. And we just passed that, so I'm very happy to say that. But it's not all about food safety. It's way past food safety. It's about identity. It's about reputation, making sure you have that interaction through your whole value chain. You are not a sole player here. You need to ensure that it covers you everywhere and that there's trust. It can cover such activities as agritourism, meeting your regulations, ensuring that you are tailoring what you're doing to fit the operation that you have. So how do you do it? Well, mandatory training. We want you to take that training that you've taken and pass those skills on to the people that work with you. You want to make sure that that mindset of risk management is throughout your whole operation. And we'll teach you how to do that. We'll teach you how to teach people. We'll teach you how, don't say you're trying to train your spouse. It'll never go well. But we'll teach you how to share information so that you can effectively get the information throughout your whole operation. We're then going to show you how to implement it. It's not good enough that you just learn how to do this, but how are you actually going to do it? We don't want this to be a course that you take and you don't look at it again. We're going to want you to figure out what your risks are, prioritize them, then lay out what you're going to do about them, actually do it, and then prove it. Now, as I mentioned before, I know that we don't have the time, nor do we love mountains of paperwork. So this is outcome-based. So we can look at any of the paperwork you have existing, any of the proof points that you have existing. You can use photographs, you can use many, many tools to actually prove your good work. And the idea here is continuous improvement. This is not an annual course. This is every day. And at the end of every year, we want you to either do a self-audit, if that's the way you choose to do this, but there's an audit every year, whether you do it or whether you do it arm's length and have us do it. We either can do a paper audit or a site audit, but we need you to do that arm's length review every single year. Okay, so why do producers use risk management programs? There is many reasons, and we're going to move on to covering them. So, Jan, how about if you tell us about your operation?
Thanks, Connie. We have a family farm in Norfolk County, and Harold's family have been on this farm for 115 years. Over the years, the farm has gone from a mixed farm to old style apple orchards to high density apple orchards, and we finally diversified into a little bit of lavender. We were one of the first farms in Ontario to adopt integrated pest management, and that built an awareness for us of environmental sustainability, and it really has become part of our business persona.
Thanks, Jan. I have a question for you as well. So what struggles did you have with risk and with managing your risk for your operations?
We started with risk management by adopting integrated pest management, which really is a risk management program because it helps to reduce the risk of economic damage to produce that you would get from insects and diseases. And as I said before, we were one of the first orchards in Ontario to adopt that program. Then we decided to diversify into lavender, and it was like opening up Pandora's box of risks. Risk suddenly grew exponentially when we started introducing people to our farm and value-added products. Currently, we're also looking at passing the farm over to our two daughters. We have frequent meetings, family discussions with them. We talk about their expansion that they're wanting to do, but we also talk about risk because risk has now become one of the major barriers if we don't address it to a successful future here.
Okay, thank you, Jan. What was your experience? And I know you guys have been very proactive in many cases and leaders in agriculture and showing why you need to move in this direction. But what was your experience for using the risk management programs you have?
Our first experience was with really with Canada GAP, the Good Agricultural Practices for apples. Canada GAP is a prescriptive program. So it identifies the risks for us and then prescribes mitigation practices. And then we do those practices and sign and record when we do them. So that was our first experience with risk management. When we got into lavender, we started going in a little bit different direction and included the Good Agricultural and Collection Practices. And that program is risk-based. It is not prescriptive. We had to do the work here. We had to look very carefully at our entire production enterprise, including value added. We had to figure out where the risks were and what we were going to do about it. And the important thing about this program and about the AgriShield, which I'm just going to say a few words next, is that we own our program. It was developed by us. And when you own something, you want to do it well and you want to keep at it. And that fact alone drives us and our employees to stick to it. We have actually developed a food safety, what I'd like to call a food safety culture on our farm as a result of GACPs. This winter, I was introduced to AgriShield for business risk management. It was a program that even I, who have a hard time with paperwork, can follow. And like GACPs, it gives us the power to find our risks, to prioritize them, and to find our own way to manage them.
Thanks, Janet. Another question for you. So how did having, you did multiple training programs, so how did having this training help your farm?
It helped us in particular because we were able to look at the risks that applied to us. One of the major risks that we faced going into Lavender was people that were visiting our farm and all the risks they brought with them. So these programs have forced us to look in great detail at what our risks are. And by being able to identify those risks, then we were able to think about how are we going to manage them, and then we were actually going to be able to put those things into practice. So it has just, it's been, I can't emphasize how important that is to own your own program like that, to be able to prioritize what you deal with, because there are so many risks associated with farming. It can be absolutely overwhelming to think, how am I going to deal with this? But when you learn to prioritize your risks, you can deal with the important ones, get them out of the way, deal with the next ones, and it becomes much less stressful.
So knowing what you know now, what would you advise fruit and vegetable producers to do?
I would say do both of those programs if you can get your hands on them. They will both affect your bottom line, and that really is where it's all about. The other risk management program, the Roots to Risk Management, it really is a shield. It does help to protect a business, especially from deadly lawsuits that sometimes you can get, but it does allow you to do due diligence in virtually every field of risk that you're going to face. So I think if you want to have a total risk management look and at your business, you really need to do both.
So thank you very much, Jan and Matthew. There is support out there. We've just presented you in detail 2 programs that are out there. There are others. Take a look, talk to people like we just talked to Jan that have actually used them, and find out what fits you. But do it. Do your risk management program whichever way you're looking at. Start with identification, assessment, and prioritization. It's a big bucket risk, and you really need to get some support as to how to get that down to a manageable size. Understand and evaluate what your risks are internally and externally, and understand that risk management is more than money management or insurance, and learn from others who have been there. Because if you don't deal with risks, they're going to deal with you. So this is, if you guys would like to contact us with more questions, we're all available. And thank you very much for today. And thank you, Matthew and Jan. And we're going to open it up now for any questions that you may have.